Cambodia Painful Past, 1975 to 1979. The full, detailed history of the suffering of the Cambodian people. Voices of the lost, stories for the future one. The fall of Phnom Penh, April 17, 1975, a day that began with hope but ended in horror. On the morning of April 17, 1975, the people of Phnom Penh believed peace had finally arrived after years of civil war. Many hoped the Khmer Rouge victory meant an end to bombing, hunger, and fear. Children cheered, people waved white cloths, families came out of shelters and hospitals, thinking the nightmare of war was over, but within hours their hopes were shattered. Khmer Rouge soldiers, young armed teenagers in black revolutionary uniforms, began shouting orders, "Leave the city immediately. American bombs are coming. You will return in 3 days." People were forced to leave. Hospital patients with IV tubes still attached, mothers who had just given birth, elderly people who could barely walk, children separated from their parents, Buddhist monks driven out of pagodas, teachers, students, shopkeepers, everyone. Phnom Penh, once a lively capital with 2 million people, was emptied in less than 24 hours. Along the roads, thousands collapsed under the heat. Many never made it out of the city alive. This forced evacuation was the beginning of year zero. The Khmer Rouge planned to erase Cambodia's past and start a new society from nothing to. The destruction of identity. Erasing what makes a human. When the Khmer Rouge gained full control, they began destroying everything connected to modern life, culture, or individuality. They banned money, suddenly worthless markets and trade, forbidden religion. Monks were defrocked or killed, schools and universities, education was dangerous, books, photos, art, all burned. Traditional ceremonies, weddings, festivals, funerals, family loyalty seen as a threat to Angkar. Everyone became a number assigned to labor camps. Names, personal stories, identities were erased. Even basic emotions were dangerous. Crying meant you were weak. Showing love to your family was individualistic. Speaking privately was rebel behavior. People learned to hide their feelings. Life became silent, controlled, and stripped of meaning. The Khmer Rouge wanted to create a pure peasant society, but what they created was a country where humanity was denied at every level. Life in the cooperative's everyday existence became a battle for survival across the country. Millions were forced into agricultural labor camps called cooperatives. Daily life was defined by endless hard work. People worked 12 to 18 hours a day, in rain, mud, and burning sun, with no rest days, with no proper tools, often barefoot even when sick or injured. Tasks included digging massive irrigation canals, carrying soil in baskets, planting rice by hand, harvesting crops, building dams and reservoirs, cutting forests, moving stones and timber, feeding livestock. Failure to work fast enough could lead to execution, starvation as a weapon. Food was controlled by the Angkar. Meals were tiny bowls of watery porridge, often just rice water. Many had to survive on leaves, grass, insects, snails, tree bark, frogs. Anything that kept them alive. People were constantly hungry. Mothers gave their portions to children. Some died with their stomachs completely empty. Disease and exhaustion. With no medicine or rest, small illnesses became deadly. Malaria, diarrhea, dysentery infections, fever, malnutrition, vitamin deficiency, snake bites. Thousands died in the rice fields, too weak to continue. Labor camps became silent graveyards. 4. Fear and execution, living under suspicion, where every breath could be your last. The Khmer Rouge ruled with extreme paranoia. They believed that enemies were everywhere, even among loyal villagers. Anyone with knowledge or skill was a threat. Teachers, doctors, engineers, students, writers, artists, musicians, monks, officials, soldiers of the old government, those who spoke French, English, Thai, Vietnamese, people who wore glasses, a symbol of education. Even simple things could lead to execution. Crying, finding food in the forest, whispering, asking questions, being sick, having soft hands, meaning not a farmer. People disappeared at night and were never seen again. S21, Tuol Sleng. This prison became the center of torture and execution. Of the nearly 20,000 people taken there, only around a dozen survived. Victims were beaten, electrocuted, starved, forced to confess crimes they never committed, taken to the killing fields, buried in mass graves. Cambodia became a land of silent fear. Five, families torn apart. The deepest wound in the Cambodian soul. One of the Khmer Rouge's main goals was to destroy family bonds. Children taken away. Children were placed into revolutionary youth groups, child soldier units, spy networks. They were taught, Angkar is your real mother and father. Children were encouraged to report their parents. Even innocent comments could lead to deadly accusations. A child saying, my mother is tired, could result in the entire family being executed. Emotions were forbidden. Parents had to hide their love. They could not comfort their children. A mother who cried for her lost son risked being taken away and killed. Families ate separately. They slept in different places. They worked in different units. The Khmer Rouge tried to break the human heart, but the memory of family stayed alive inside the people, even in silence. 6. Disease, hunger, hopelessness. When even a minor fever could mean death, the Khmer Rouge destroyed Cambodia's medical system. Hospitals were abandoned, doctors were executed, medicine was declared capitalist. People tried to survive with leaves, roots, salt water, prayers, but diseases spread quickly. Malaria, dengue, tuberculosis, cholera, malnutrition, related blindness, severe dehydration. Thousands died silently in the huts, in the forest, in the rice fields. People were buried without proper funerals. Sometimes 3 or 4 bodies shared one grave because there was no time to dig more. The country became a land of bones. 7. The end of the nightmare, January 7th, 1979. When light finally returned after 4 years of darkness on January 7th, 1979, Vietnamese forces entered Cambodia. For survivors, it was the first moment of hope in 4 long years. Some cried, some collapsed, some called for their families, not knowing if they were alive. The Khmer Rouge fled into the jungles. People slowly returned to their villages. They searched for their loved ones, often finding empty houses and silent fields. A country broken, but alive. Cambodia was left with empty cities, destroyed infrastructure, mass graves across the land, orphans with no families, survivors traumatized for life. But the people survived. They rebuilt, they preserved their stories, and they carried the memory of those who never returned. Between 1975 and 1979, nearly 2 million Cambodians died. Their voices were silenced, but their stories will never be forgotten. We tell these stories to honor them and to remind the world that this tragedy must never happen again. This is Cambodia's painful past. This is the history of our suffering. This is the memory of our people.